It was the sound of 40 years of silence. The sound of a life, weighed in copper and silver, poured out to save two souls he'd never met. The rancher laughed. He said the old hermit couldn't possibly have enough. But Arthur, the man they called the ghost of the mountain, hadn't come to bid with money. He'd come to bid with a ghost of his own. The little sisters Elara and Mae were about to be torn apart, sold for debt. Their future was a cold bunkhouse and endless chores, until a shadow stepped from the back of the room. He didn't say a word. He just pointed at his entire world lying on that table. For them. Why would a lonely old man give everything he had for two strangers? The answer was buried on his mountain, a secret he thought he'd take to his grave. This is that story. To understand the weight of those coins on the table, you have to journey up there, to the silence. For 40 years, Arthur Bell had been a rumor to the town in the valley below. A shape seen hauling firewood. A light in the window on the blackest nights. The mountain man. His world was measured in cords of wood, in jars of preserved berries, in the slow arc of the sun across his porch. The only conversation was the wind in the firs and the crackle of the fire, and the memory of a laugh, captured in a fading photograph. Her name was Clara. People thought him bitter, broken, and he was once. But time on the mountain doesn't just erode rock. It smooths sharp edges of grief into something softer, heavier. His loneliness wasn't angry anymore. It was a familiar coat, worn thin and comfortable. He believed his story was over, that the final chapter had been written decades ago with Clara. He was wrong. Our stories are never truly ours alone. They ripple out, like a stone dropped in a still pond, touching shores we can't see. Once a month, Arthur came down. For salt, flour, a few necessities. He spoke in grunts and nods. The storekeeper, Mr. Higgins, was the only one who engaged. That day, the air was different. Attention thick as syrup. Higgins wouldn't meet his eyes as he bagged the flour. Terrible business, Arthur. Just terrible. A grunt, questioning. The Miller place. Fire 3 nights back. Took John and Sarah both. Arthur stops, his hand freezing on the counter. Left those 2 little girls. Elara and Mae. No family to speak of. And with the debt on the farm. Higgins nods out the window towards a stern man in a fine hat talking to the sheriff. Jedediah Croft. Says the debt passes on. He's making arrangements for the girls. At his ranch. And there it was. The ripple. Arthur didn't see 2 orphans. For a heart-stopping moment, shrouded in memory, he saw another fire. Another loss. A different future being stolen. The code of solitude felt suddenly cold and ill-fitting. His Clara hadn't died in a fire. It was a sickness that the doctor called a wasting. But the feeling was the same. The feeling of the world ending. Of plans for a house, for a family, for a life, turning to ash in your hands. He had been left alone, with a debt of love that could never be repaid. He ran to the mountain to escape the pitying looks, the hollow condolences. He thought he was hiding from the pain. He was really building a monument to it. He didn't know them, but he knew the look in their eyes. It was the same lost, shattered look he'd seen in his own mirror for years after Clara was gone. A future canceled. It was a debt he recognized. Not of money, but of care. And Arthur Bell was a man who always paid his debts. Jedediah Croft didn't see children. He saw units of labor. Small hands for mending fences, for feeding chickens, for cleaning. He spoke of room and board as if it were charity. The town shifted in their seats. They felt the wrongness of it, a cold stone in the gut. But the debt was real. Croft had the law on his side, and no one could or would match his offer. The silence in the room was a living thing, heavy with collective shame. Arthur enters the hall. He stands at the very back in the shadows by the door. No one notices him at first. Well then, seems we have an understanding. I'll have my man fetch them after the reading of the will tomorrow. A whimper from Mae. Elara puts a thin arm around her sister, glaring defiantly at Croft, but her lower lip trembles. The sound of a chair scraping. All heads turn. Arthur walks forward. His boots are loud on the wooden floor. He doesn't look at anyone. He walks straight to the table where Croft and the sheriff sit. He reaches into his inner pocket. It wasn't a dramatic entrance. It was a slow, inevitable one, like a glacier finally reaching the sea. He had nothing to say to these people. His business was with the ghost he carried, and the two lives trembling on that bench. He places the leather pouch on the table with a soft, heavy thud. He looks at the sheriff, then at Croft. For the girls. To keep them. Together. Croft scoffs. What's this? Bell, that won't cover a tenth of the debt. This is a business matter. Not a charity auction for a hermit's trinkets. Arthur doesn't answer Croft. He looks only at the sheriff. It's all I have. The sheriff, hesitantly, opens the pouch. He pours it out. The coins spread, glinting. There are more than anyone expected. Old coins. Savings from a lifetime of selling furs and carvings. A few gold pieces. It is a humble fortune. It was the archaeology of a solitary life. Every coin represented a winter endured, a meal skipped, a memory suppressed. It was the physical weight of what could have been with Clara. And he was trading it all for what could be for Elara and Mae. This is absurd. I'll double it. Arthur says nothing. He just stands there, a rock in a stream. Croft's face reddens. He adds more money to the table. Triple. They're coming with me. Arthur slowly, methodically, reaches to his belt. He unbuckles it. On it is a large, beautifully crafted silver buckle, intricately carved with a bird in flight, Clara's bird. And then he offered the one thing he never thought he'd part with. The last piece of her. Arthur places the silver buckle on top of the coin pile. It lands with a final metallic clink. The room holds its breath. He looks at Croft, his gaze unwavering. The message is clear. I have nothing else. But I will stand here until I die. Croft spits the words. You're a fool, Bell. You buy two mouths you can't feed with a shack on a mountain. You'll ruin them and yourself. Finally, he speaks to Croft, his voice low. Better ruined together than broken apart. Silence in the hall. The sheriff looks from the pile, a lifetime's solitude in metal, to Croft's crisp banknotes, to the terrified girls. He slowly nods. The debt is to the estate, Jedediah. Bell's offer clears it. In full. The girls go with him. Croft slams his hand on the table, snatches up his money, and storms out, the door banging shut behind him. The sound echoes. The townsfolk begin to murmur, shuffle out, unable to look Arthur or the girls in the eye. Arthur turns to face the bench. He looks suddenly unsure, a giant confronted with two fragile seedlings. He kneels with difficulty, bringing himself to their eye level. He doesn't smile. His face is all hard lines and shadow. My name's Arthur. I live on the mountain. It's quiet there. You'd be safe. Elara, the older, clutches Mae tighter. She stares at him, a mixture of fear and fierce calculation. Why? He considers this, looking at his hands. 'Cause it ain't right. What was happening? Do you have a cow? A slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head. No, chickens. No, what do you have? Arthur looks up, past them, out the window towards his mountain. His voice is softer. A roof. A fire. And no one will come to take you away. Ever again. The word ever hangs in the air. Mae, who hasn't spoken, slowly uncurls her finger from Elara's dress and points a tiny hand at Arthur's face. You have a nice face. For the first time in 40 years, Arthur Bell feels something crack open behind his eyes. He blinks rapidly, looking down. And so they walked, away from the town that failed them, into the silent domain of the man who didn't. The girls saw only a steep, endless climb into wilderness. Arthur saw every root, every stone with new eyes, as obstacles for small legs. He didn't offer to carry them. He just slowed his own pace, a monumental shift in the rhythm of his life. They arrive. The cabin looks even smaller, more primitive in the fading light. The girls stop, staring. Elara whispers, dismayed. We lived on a farm. There was a barn. Arthur hears this. He pushes the door open. The interior is clean but stark in the firelight. He gestures awkwardly. Come in. I'll stoke the fire. The girls enter, huddled together. They look at the single cot, the one chair. Arthur busies himself at the fireplace, his back to them, giving them space to absorb it. He feels the weight of their disappointment. It's heavier than any sack of flour. Arthur gives the girls his cot, piling it with every blanket he owns. He makes a pallet for himself on the hard floor by the fire. The night sounds are loud. Owls, wind, creaking trees. Mae whimpers. Elara shushes her. Arthur lies awake, staring at the ceiling beams. The debt was paid, but the currency had changed. Now he owed them warmth, safety, a childhood. Lying on the floor, he felt more exposed than ever under the open sky. He had traded the known quiet of his loneliness for the terrifying, unknown noise of responsibility. Outside, an owl hooted. Inside, a small girl cried for her mother. Arthur didn't know how to fix that, so he did the only thing he could think of. He gets up silently. He goes to a high shelf and takes down one of his carved wooden birds, a small, plump robin. He walks to the cot and kneels. He holds the bird out to Mae in the dim firelight. Wood doesn't make a sound, not like the owls. It's quiet company. Mae's small hand reaches out and takes the bird. She holds it to her chest. Elara watches, her eyes wide in the dark. Did you make it? He nods. I make the birds that my wife liked. It's the first time he said the word wife aloud in this cabin in decades. The air in the room seems to change, to become less hostile. Where is she? A long pause. The fire pops. Gone. A long time ago. He gets up, returns to his pallet. But the crying has stopped. The only sound is the soft whisper of a small thumb stroking polished wood. It was not a family. Not yet. It was a treaty, negotiated in gestures and gruff instructions. He was a terrible teacher, all patience and no words. They were terrified students, desperate to learn the rules of this strange new world. But in the shared tasks, the chopping, the fetching, the mending, a fragile bridge began to form, built not on sentiment, but on survival. One rainy afternoon, the girls are exploring the cabin while Arthur is out checking his trapline. Elara, trying to find a dry place for their damp shawls, moves a large, old trunk in a corner. Behind it is a small, low door almost like a cupboard. She opens it. Inside, a tiny, perfect room. It holds a miniature, hand-carved cradle, empty. A small rocking chair. A dusty mobile of wooden stars hangs from the ceiling. On a shelf are a few children's books, their colors faded. It is a room frozen in time, a monument to a future that never was. Every solitary life has its secret heart. This was Arthur's. Not the photograph of Clara, but this preparation. This hope, carved from pine and love, for a child that never drew breath. The mountain man hadn't just run away to grieve. He had built a nursery for a ghost. Arthur returns, soaking wet. He stops dead in the doorway. The trunk is moved. The little door is open. Elara and Mae are sitting inside the small room, Mae in the rocking chair, Elara holding one of the books. They look up, guilty, afraid. Arthur's face drains of color. He sags against the doorframe, all the strength gone from him. A broken whisper. You shouldn't. That's... He can't finish. The deepest, most guarded vault of his soul has been opened. He expects to feel anger, violation. Instead, he feels a profound, weary exposure. The last wall is down. Elara, her voice very small. Was it for your baby? Arthur just nods, looking at the floor. Mae rocking gently. It's a nice chair. The simple, childish observation disarms him completely. He slides down the doorframe to sit on the floor, his head in his hands. The rain drums on the roof. The girls don't run. They watch the giant, brought low by memory. Later that night, the fire is high. Arthur speaks. The words come slow, rusty, like water from an unused pump. Her name was Clara. The sickness, it took her quick. The baby never came. I built this place after. Built that room. Thought, maybe I'd need it. For someone. Someday. He looks at the girls, really looks at them, sitting in the firelight, clutching their wooden birds. I'm sorry. It's a poor home for you. Not what you deserved. Elara, after a long silence. Our roof leaked. The barn was warmer. Croft's bunkhouse. Mama said it was a mean place. She meets his eyes, a fierceness returning. This isn't a mean place. That's the moment the treaty ends. A new understanding begins. They aren't intruders in his monument to loss. They are the life that finally came to fill the empty space. The mountain didn't change, but the life upon it did. The silence was now punctuated by questions, by stories, by the occasional miraculous sound of laughter echoing off the cliffs. Arthur's savings were gone, but he was richer. He had traded coins for questions, solitude for skinned knees to bandage, a haunted past for a present that demanded his attention every single day. Years are the true currency of life. Arthur invested his remaining ones in them, and they, in turn, invested their resilience, their youth, their love, in him. They healed the land around the cabin, and in doing so, without even knowing, they healed the man who owned it. Evening. Arthur, older, more bent, but with a light in his eyes, sits on the porch. Elara sits beside him, reading a book from town. Mae leans against his knee, whittling her own piece of wood. The sunset paints the sky in gold and purple. Quietly, to no one in particular. Clara would have liked you too. Would have loved the noise. Elara smiles, doesn't stop reading. Mae holds up her whittling, a crude but recognizable little bird. Look, Arthur. It's a family of robins. Arthur takes the carving. He turns it in his gnarled hands. He looks from the wooden bird, to Mae's expectant face, to Elara, to the vast, beautiful silent mountain that is no longer silent. His voice is thick. Yes, yes, it is. He outbid a cruel man with a lifetime of loneliness. And in the end, he won something far more valuable than 2 orphans. He won back his own heart. He learned that kindness is never just a gift you give. It's a seed you plant in broken ground. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it grows into a forest that shelters you in your winter. The mountain man wasn't a hero. He was just a man who finally found a debt worth spending his whole life to pay.